Everybody, this is Fraser here with my next guest, Katano Barn, who will be coming on shortly. But I wanted to basically introduce my guest, who's appearing for Jazz International Day, and it's really, really exciting to have him here. Katano Barn is an award winning, celebrated singer songwriter and storyteller of Scottish and Torres Strait Islander descent. His songs are a fusion of poignant moments, lethal insight, and real passion. And you're going to hear that shortly. So, as Katana translates his mixed heritage and life experience into this emotional and engaging songs, we're going to hear some of those. And some of them performed from his recent work called Soul Talk. Very, very popular throughout Australia, and has supported and shared the stage with numerous acts, including the Soweto String Quartet, Shane Howard and the Guana Band, Tim Friedman, Blue King Brown, Kavisha Masala, Archie Roach and Ruby Hunter, Christine Anu, Chris Wilson, Kevin Carmody, the Rimby Band, Mary G, Lindsay Pollock. It goes on and on and on and on. So I am really, really, really grateful to have him as part of my guest today for all of us. And before I bring him on, this really exciting guy, he's got a wonderful partner, Tony, who's an exceptional performer. And it's just wonderful to have him on board here. So without further ado, let me bring you Katana Barn. And this should happen shortly. And here he is. Yay!
Thank you.
Hey, Katana, thank you for taking this moment here. I just wanted for our audience, we're watching this live screen throughout the world for Jazz International Day. Maybe I just gave a little snippet, from your LinkedIn profile, but up to this date period of time, you've performed a body of your work over 40 years plus, writing original music and doing a lot of partnerships of different types of performance places, and also actively advocating for your indigenous passion for your people. So maybe you could touch a little bit about some of those aspects that you feel, how you feel about your music with your culture, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, I think it began from birth. We have a, a practice in our family where we take the sweat from different parts of our bodies and we rub our children and we say, this is the family smell, this is your origin, this is your ghee, this is the family you belong to, and whatever you do in this family, whatever you do in this life is reflected upon your family. And then we give what we call spit, where we open the child's mouth and we literally spit into the child's mouth. And normally, before the children are born, we have visions of what they might be or what their life will entail. And my mother's vision for me was that I was going to sing in this life. And so I guess it began before I was even born. And in extended Torres Strait families, you're immersed by culture and the songs that your mother would sing at funerals. She would also judge the Saturday racing forms and singing the amazing Torres Strait hymns. I think she was asking for divine intervention in her selection of horses. But music uh, has always been a part of, I guess, my experience to the extent where one time in my life I was a ballet dancer. And it's interesting as a musician reflecting on how dancers use music to connect with it, and the subtle movement of this hand is reflected in this piece of music. So when I write and compose, I I come from this place of I guess wholeness in thinking, how am I going to move the texture of the music and the sound. So, and all of these I guess of aspects which I learned from as a child. My mother smacking my behind, rhythmically to get me to sleep, or rocking me and singing me, or so yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
and
And throughout that time, because you've been involved in creative dancing, as well as being a facilitator, a music therapist, and also a host of different collaborations with Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists throughout Australia and overseas. But I suppose along that journey, you've just really introduced your culture, and then bit of drops of jazz and country and original indigenous music have all been poured into this mix right up to 40 years now. So maybe
Yes.
you could just share some of those periods in 10-year blocks, the times when
Yeah.
you.
Well, I guess my love of jazz started accidentally. I think I was about 10 or 11, and I was heading down to where I lived in Mackay. There was the Pioneer River used to run through the middle of Mackay, and after huge floods, we'd always rush down there to see what was washed up on the riverbank. And when we made our way down to the river, on the railway bridge were guys with cassettes, and they were going through these cassettes and they were chucking them. And I figured they must have stole it from somewhere because they just had these large garbage bags.
Hmm.
And when we sort of came up, they said, "Kids, do you want to grab some of these cassettes?" And I thought, okay. So I went through the cassettes, and they're rejects. And there were things by George Benson. I think it was
Wow.
the White Rabbit album
Oh
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And then there
yeah.
was,
That's right.
I'd never heard of George Benson. And then Nat King Cole. There was these double CDs of Nat King Cole and um, uh, Billie Holiday. And so there was this jazz repertoire of songs that I hadn't heard of. Because here in Australia, we listened to, predominantly rock music when we were kids. So I was going home, playing these cassettes and music that I'd never heard before, which had all these different textures and scales, and that was my sort of introduction into George Benson, and I guess as I grew older, I wanted to emulate these artists, and and over the years, people say to me, "Geez, I love the way you use these major seventh chords or these ninth chords or 11th or 13th." And to me, it's like they have
Wow.
names. To me, it was just shape, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember, years ago jamming with you and Danny at Link Up, and to hear those chordal shapes that you would get on the piano and go, "Oh yeah, they're the," because as a guitarist, you're sort of limited in your practice. But
Yeah.
and I think the sparseness of jazz chords give you moments of reflection, and so I've started writing some music for a children's show, and one of the songs called "Home Cooking," and it's got this: "Home cooking, finger licking, wouldn't you like to give it a try? I travel the world," and then I'm using all these major chords, and this show is going to tour into remote Indigenous communities, and I wanted to give the kids a sense of a different sort of ambience or sound that they might be unfamiliar to.
Mm.
So, and the thing I like about jazz is the free flow. I mean, I've started playing bass in bass guitar in church, and I've never really appreciated the interplay between
Mm.
the drummer and the bass player, and you know, playing modal things or just taking the bass to another sort of level and experience. And I guess the wonderful thing about in that church environment is you're trying to create a mood and you're trying to um, I guess play with people's emotions. And I find that some of those modal things I play on bass, I wouldn't have thought about it if I didn't have the opportunity, I guess, over the years to appreciate what jazz can do.
Yeah, so you described that these are elements that have come in your music, but yet you've been able to sustain a regular performance uh, agenda with some really great indigenous artists.
Yes,
And I wonder at times, like when you think of communities in the indigenous, a very high level culture in their presentation and in their music, and then all of a sudden, Katana is bringing this Western influence to Torres Strait Island, and I suppose you're being very very cautious about how you write music to present with everything that you've got. So can you talk about how when you went back to Torres Strait Island and you presented your new body of work and how you think about how you represent your people as such, with this body
yeah.
of influences you have?
It's funny. I had one of my cousins come up to me and he said, "Can you write songs with simple chords?" He said, "Because I want to play your songs." and, and I said they are simple chords, but I said it's an expression of
Oh
uh, of
yeah,
of myself. I said,
yeah.
I said I love a major seventh chord or a minor seventh chord, and the sparseness that it creates there. And when you think of Torres Strait Islander culture and um, being in the ocean and and that environmental sort of sound, trying to uh, there's a piece of music I wrote called the Darnley Deep, and it goes a little bit like this. We worked the seabed together, Peter tenders my line. From the stern of the Polaga, 40 fathoms I dive. And the wonderful thing about those jazz chords is they create a lot of space in there. And I think what space does, and I think for a lot of musicians, I think it was Carlos Santana says, it's not the notes you play, it's the notes you leave out that create that music. And I guess in my composition work, I try and think where's the breath, where's the space, where's the opportunity for the listener to be
Wow.
drawn in. I was watching Victor Wooten talking the other day, and he said, I could do all that fancy stuff. He says, but he said that will make people look, but he said what I'm interested in is getting people to listen. And he said, and the only way you can do that is to create space in the music. And I think that's what I try to do, and that's what I try to when I run songwriting workshops in the Torres Straits. I try and get the writers to look for the silence, because silence can make people nervous because they want to fill it up. It's got to have something. It's got to be something in there. But I think, I say to them, the more sparse you can make the sound, the more people will want to come with you on whatever your journey is.
I've just uploaded a little example. Just play a minute of Inside Salt Water. So this is your project called Soul Talk. So can you talk a little bit before I play this? Maybe I'll play about 30 seconds of it, and then I'll ask you some questions.
My name is Gitano Band. This is Soul Talk. This song is called Inside Salt Water. Thank you. Rest beneath your mother's smile for singing off your groove. Then you make your way. You know it's someday, but for now just let it go. And breathe inside salt water. inside soul water. Breathe inside soul water.
That was great.
Thank you. Looks like you've frozen there, Fraser. Frozen in time.
Okay, I'll just put this back on. Fraser's frozen.
No, you're okay now.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah, you're back. And you're frozen again.
Show and stream. Let's get back in there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that song "Inside Salt Water" is probably one of the most painful songs I've had to write in my life, and the song is about. It came about because my father, on his deathbed, denied who his family were, and he died a couple of days after that. It's a long story, but when I wrote the song, I had this vision of my mother holding me as a baby and rocking me in her arms, and this notion that when we're in the embryonic fluid, we're in salt water, and then when we cry salt water, and we have this affinity with salt water. And all people, and especially Torres Strait Islanders, when we see the ocean, there is some connection or longing with it. So inside salt water is about that sort of connection, that the most basic of connections, father son, was not there, because I think my father struggled with having children who were not of his color. And there was a time and place in Australia where when I was born, I could have even been removed from my parents because I was a brown-skinned child. So I guess a lot of my music, I try to incorporate stories of my life, and like I said, that song in particular is a song that I do. But like I said, the essence of the origin of it was about my father on his deathbed denying his wife, my mother, and denying his son in front of a priest who asked if he had family. So,
Well, just wondering, in conclusion, can you give a bit of a snippet of writer, facilitator, performing with someone?
I'm sorry, Fraser, you've frozen there again, my brother. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear
I
me?
can hear you now.
Stop talking, and you just sum up.
Sum up. Sorry, you're frozen again, my brother.
Yep. If you could up where you see yourself going,
Okay. Look, it's interesting. I'm coming up to the big 60 next year, and I reflect on my life, and life moves so quickly. And I guess as entertainers or performers, we, to me, as a composer, as a songwriter, as a storyteller, to me, our life is but a series of stories. And these stories give our lives credit and meaning to ourselves, not to other people, but, in 20, years' time, when I'm 80 and I'm sitting in a chair and hopefully I'm still playing music and creating, all these songs will be snippets of my life, and I will have the opportunity to reflect on those. And the wonderful gift that we can give other people as creators is to give them snippets and moments in their lives. When they listen to a song, they go, that song speaks to me. That song is about that time in my life. And I think that's the wonderful thing about being a creator. And as a music therapist, I get to work with people to for them to create stories of their lives. And I think to me that's one of the most precious things, that opportunities I have, and humbling to sit with someone who's lost somebody, or they've lost a child, or they've even lost themselves because they've got dementia. And so
Mm.
I'm just grateful that I get to wake up each day and I get to create music with people as a music therapist. So thank you for the opportunity to share with yourself and the listeners. And
Yeah, and I've got this last song here called "Loving You Was Never Easy." So
yes,
maybe you could just, I'm going to end on that one, but you want to share some thoughts on writing that song, you know?
well,
Um,
it came from a dream, and it's sort of saying to a lost love that I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't have the opportunity to end on a good note. So you might want to start this one a little bit halfway through the song, because there's a long intro. It looks like it. Abawiya nidu maginari. Baba wiya ninumay kiangela. Namudia kaimel inukubu inukubu kurusi kagega. Bye everyone.
This song features Freeman and Shenzo. This song's called Loving You Was Never Easy. This goes to my second wife, Plaintive. Summer days pass me by. I'm a prisoner held in time, longing for my peace of mind. Mr. Rock Passage, whoa! Never easy. I just never took the time to loving you was never easy. Now you're always on my mind. sorry about that. 10 minutes. Cool. 16 minutes. 7 minutes? This will be our last song, everybody.